Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Ween and we're going to rank their studio albums. I'm sure we're going to get into a fist fight over that, Chris.
Well, we're like many miles away from each other at the moment, so
I will drive down there.
but yeah, gonna rate some Ween.
Yeah. So, how did you first get into Ween?
Um, I remember seeing, I think it was an ad for Pure Guava, maybe in like a comic book or something, but it was just kind of like the cover and like the Boognish. If you
Yeah.
want to hold up your shirt there, Boognish. But and I was like, that's kind of a weird name for a band, and just kind of like moved on, and then it was in the summer between grade 8 and grade 9, which was, I think, 1995 or 6. I think 5.
You're dating yourself there.
Well, I know. Um, a friend of mine gave me a call and said that he had moved away. And he's like, man, me and this kid I met have been listening to Ween like nonstop. And like the songs are hilarious. So I guess I filed it in my brain. And then, like literally, like maybe that weekend, I remember going out to a music store, and then they had the Mollusk,
It's a good
and
start.
yeah, it had just come out, like brand new album by Ween, the Mollusk, and
So this is
I
probably
bought
like
it.
1997, I think that one came out.
Mollusk is 96, isn't it?
Uh, I think the country one was 96. Oh, well, whatever. It doesn't matter.
We'll have to look. Well, anyway, whatever year that was, because the Mollusk had just come out, and I remember getting home and putting it on. And I mean, to be honest, it's not like any music that you're not prepared to go into a Ween album
Yeah.
first time. Um, and yeah, I just thought it was so fantastic that I went out and I bought everything else. How about
Nice.
you?
Oh, I got into Ween through you, obviously. I remember back in 2003, I think it was, when the Live in Chicago DVD came out.
Right.
You bought it I think the first day it came out, or pretty
Oh yeah,
close.
yeah. I had it pre-ordered.
And we went back to your house and watched it. I'd never heard them before. And I liked it. And you remember, the next day I actually went down and bought that DVD
Well,
set.
what I remember is that during the whole performance, you were like silent, and then like afterwards, you're like, "Well, I gotta go home," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess he's not into it." And then like the next day, you like sold a bunch of your stuff so you could buy it. I was like, "Oh, I
Well,
guess he."
yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was like, I don't know, there was that performance is so great.
Oh, it's amazing. Like even my dad loved it. Like my dad would be like, "Hey, could you throw on that Ween DVD for me?" So
Well,
I
it's
mean,
cool too because they really, even like their more brown stuff and the crazier stuff, when you see it live, they're able to kind of craft it into like a more accessible way, for a
unless it's
new
an
people.
encore,
Yeah.
the encores would get a little bit brown.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for a first timer, actually seeing them play live versus just hearing a studio album probably hooked me a bit more. Like if I had put on the pod or something, I probably wouldn't have
Right.
bought their album, but yeah, that's how I started. I think the very first studio album I bought was Chocolate and Cheese, if I remember, and that was another great way to kind of
Right.
first get into them.
It's definitely like a sampler for
Yeah,
like all their styles, you know.
yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you how I rated it on my list just yet, but really, for if somebody like is curious about Ween, just go buy Chocolate and Cheese because
Yeah, I would say
that.
start with that one. It has a good mix of what they're about on that album, right?
And it's fun. It's funny too because coming off of the albums like Pure Guava, The Pod, and Godwin Satan, there's really no precedence to why that album is so cohesive and good.
I know.
Like they're really sporadic and crazy, and then all of a sudden there's like this masterpiece that just emerges.
It's kind of crazy they got signed to a big label too on Pure
Electric,
Guava.
yeah. Well,
Like,
I have to believe it was like a write off. Like there's no way they saw a hit, even though I think Push the Little Daisies was played a little bit on
yeah,
like
they had a video and everything for it.
120 minutes or whatever it was in the States. Yeah, they had a video. But to be honest, like of all their songs, that one's like not up there for me.
No, not really for me either. I'd probably skip that. 9 times out of 10. I kind of find it a bit annoying. So,
Yeah, but like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot better on the pod, and there's a few on Godwin Satan that really kind of elevate them out of the dirge of drug-induced insanity on their earlier stuff. But
before we get into the rankings, you want to touch on the live albums a little bit?
well, so basically going through all the albums to compile this list, I started to think about how many like live albums they had, and I was just like blown away. So like I own 6 live albums officially released. It's not bootlegs. Like I have bootlegs as well, and that's not all of them. But
And they're all pretty good, really. Most of the live albums, if
yeah,
not all.
like it's funny because even stuff like live at the Cat's Cradle, which is still them. It's like Dean and Gene with the sequencer, where
Yeah.
they're playing over top of the beats. It's still a great album. Like it's still it's a little bit crazy at times, but I mean it's still Ween. Like it sounds like a band. But then we have like live in Toronto,
Well,
Satan
got that one
live.
here.
Oh, there we go.
You have
Yeah,
the original copy. This is the repress. I think it's on what is it? Green. It's on green vinyl. You have the
mine's on
original
white.
white.
I do. But the actual original, I have the original vinyl, but the original pressing is a CD only.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I've never even seen that. But
This album is really great though because they have a lot of the. It was on the country tour, I believe. So a lot of the songs are from the country
yeah,
album, if I remember.
yeah, yeah.
Which I'm not gonna spoil that, but I like that album a lot. So
It's funny because I actually have a shirt from that tour. I was gonna wear, but I couldn't find it. So, but then like even still, we have like Live in Chicago, which we brought up, which is killer.
yeah,
It comes with a CD of the performance, but the live like footage is just killer.
I still have
Uh,
that somewhere, but I didn't dig that one out.
yeah, Godwin Satan live, which when
Oh,
it came out, right there, when it came out, I was kind of on the fence because that album's not really my most favorite by them, but somehow they kick it into like high gear, and it's a killer live album.
you know what's crazy is I'm also not the biggest fan of Gone Weed Satan, but this might be my favorite live album, which makes no sense. But the performance is so killer on this, and Jeaner's vocals on this is like some of the best he ever did. I think it's
Right.
awesome.
Well, is I remember being like blown away at how fierce it was. But and I think there's a story in the liner notes about how the show was almost canceled because of 9/11. And
Yeah,
then at the last minute they decided we're just going to do it to kind of alleviate some of the the turmoil that was going on at the time. And man, like they just played like it was their last show. It
yeah,
was
it was
just
great.
fierce. Of all the live albums, um, I'm gonna say like Painting the Town Brown is probably the worst.
Yeah, I
You
could
know,
get.
like, and I know that some people enjoy it, and I've actually had arguments with people who tell me it's their favorite. But
Well, I was gonna kind of bring it up later on, but I guess maybe we can get into it now. There's kind of like two types of Ween fans. Like the ones who are heavy into the Brown stuff, the first
right,
3 albums or so, and then there's people who are kind of more into the later albums and the more crafted songs and stuff like that. I'm into both per se. I
I
do
was gonna
lean a
say
little.
I feel like I like both sides, but there's times when it gets like too polished. I don't like it,
Yeah,
which we'll get into later. And then there's stuff where it's just them screaming into a microphone, and it's just like it's not really for me.
I do. Me personally, I do lean in a bit more of the polished stuff, and you'll probably see that in my rankings. But I do enjoy a lot of the Brown stuff too. Like I am a fan of the whole catalog, but there is some stuff that's just it's basically unlistenable for me.
It's definitely avant-garde to be
Yeah.
nice. But so should we just dive into the albums here?
Sure, I figure we just go back and forth. So, what do you have
Um,
at number 9? I guess it is.
and then we're gonna start at number 9. Okay, what do you have for number 9? I assume that ours is gonna be the same.
Ah, I thought this, and this was one of the last minute switcheroos I had.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure I know what yours is.
M Night
Mine,
Shyamalan here.
mine. I think people might be a little upset. It might be a little controversial because I know
You
some
say
people
White
say it's their
Pepper,
favorite.
I'm gonna like come over there.
It's the Pod. Now the Pod, it's the only one I actually don't own a physical version of. in any form,
Dude.
CD or record. But to me, I don't know that album. I maybe granted I need to spend more time with that album, but that one just never really hooked me. Like I know it has Dr. Rock on it. It has She Fucks Me, which
Molly.
I like a lot.
Molly's killer.
Frank, I think, is on that one.
This Stallion.
Stallion, I like Stallion Part Three the best. I don't know, and it was between that and another one that I guess we'll touch on when you say it, because I'm pretty sure I know what you're gonna say.
Right.
But that, this album, I don't know, to me, it was just the weakest album. If I was to throw on a Ween album, I would. This would probably be the last one I would throw on, to be quite honest.
I'm shocked.
I
I
know.
like Pod. It's not my favorite, and from what I understand, I think it was just stuff that they recorded at the same time as Godwin Satan, and it was just like more of the same, which definitely sounds like it. But in all the craziness, there's some good songs on the pod, man. I'm shocked. I'm
I know.
shocked
It's a bit
because what I'm
controversial.
gonna
I
lay
know.
down here is a fucking pile of garbage.
I know. To me, it might just be a thing where I never bought the album back in the day, so I was never quite into it. And where I'm at now, I just, it's not really my cup of tea. So that one, it could just been kind of fell by the wayside a little bit. But
It might have. You might want to go back, man. It's got some good stuff.
I have, like, I've listened to it even through the years. Every now and again, I'll throw it on and give it a chance. But there's another album I've done that with that kind of went up the rankings for me that I think you might be a little surprised by. We'll get to that later, but.
All right.
That one I have given a chance over the years, and it actually has climbed quite a bit for me.
Number 9 for Mark is the pod. Now, number 9 for me, I'm going to jump into it, which you can say it. Guess what it is?
I'm gonna guess it's this one.
Fucking garbage. Like, we saw them on this tour
Yes.
and bought the album on the tour, and I remember, like, I didn't listen to the album before we went to see them live because I wanted to see the songs live first. And aside from With My Own Bare Hands, that album is just horrendous. It's like the most middle of the road, crappy sap that they could have. Like, I would rather they just not put out anything. Like, Diener could have put out With My Own Bare Hands on like a Moist Boys album, and just
It is
just
kind of, it sounds like the Diener band that he has now, the Dean Ween group. It sounds like a song from that.
yeah, or like the
That
Moist Boys. If you're listening to them,
yeah.
yeah. So it's like that. It's like more rock, you know.
I'll talk about this one. This is my number 8. This is the one at the beginning of the day I actually had this last, but then I kind of did that last minute switcheroo. But there are some songs that I do enjoy. I think I
Like
enjoy
what?
this album a bit more than you. Friends, I think is kind of fun.
Friends. So we didn't get into the Friends EP. Now that's something that's actually sort of gained footing with me. It's
Yeah,
actually
it's
all
a good
right.
song.
The version of Friends on that album is terrible.
I don't know. I think it's okay. Learning to Love is okay. It's kind of like the country album. It could have been a B-side from the country album or something. The Fruit Man
It
is
sounds like
okay.
a band trying to play like the country album.
Like a lot of these songs, they're just like you said, they're middle of the road. But what's the one? Your Party, I like a lot. That was good.
How? That's like the worst song on the record.
No, I don't mind that one. I kind of like the atmosphere, the vibe of that one. The sax is pretty cool. It's like a '70s porno sax in it.
I think it's like David Sanborn on sax, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think I read that.
But the problem with this album is there is some songs that I can't fucking stand. Like Fiesta, I just can't stand that song. Like,
But when we saw them
can't stand
live,
that song.
that was the opening track.
I know. And and I enjoyed this album a bit more when it first came out, and it's kind of got on my nerves, I guess to say, or I've liked it less over the years.
I don't know how.
Yeah, but also I remember listening to this on the way home from that show that we went to, and I remember liking it more than you, and you were more quiet and kind of reserved on this talking about the songs and stuff. So I remember even day one, you kind of weren't a huge fan of it.
Yeah, it just like I was bummed. I was expecting a lot more.
So
And
that was my
then
number. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say a little caveat to seeing them live on that tour is I remember us getting lost in Toronto, and then on the way home you were falling asleep behind the wheel, so we were playing like Slayer's Rain and Blood at like like at like full volume to stay awake.
With the windows down, I think too.
Yeah, yes.
And I remember there was so much weed in that fucking place. we drove home, and like 2 hours later, I had stopped by my work because I worked a night shift just to kind of say hi to the guys or whatever. And I still reeked of weed, and we didn't even smoke weed at the concert. It was just from
And,
being in the room.
and for like half the show, I had a guy in like a Superman costume with his head on my shoulder. So you know, it was a wild night. But that album's garbage, just garbage.
So that was my eight. That was your nine. What do you have at eight?
I have an 8. I have Pure Guava.
Ooh,
See, Pure Guava to me,
pure shit.
well, no, in Spinal Tap, but I don't know. I just don't find much substance there. You know, like yes, like Push Little Daisies was kind of like a single, but I don't know. I just find it to be kind of a meh album. Like nothing really spectacular. Like there's nothing I go back to on that album and go like, shit, that's a good song.
I kind of find that funny considering your first exposure to them was that album, even though maybe you didn't buy it till later on. But
Right.
you think maybe there's a bit of some sort of nostalgia or something for that album, or
I guess not because, like I said, like I'll put it on every now and again, like you said with the Cucaracha, and I'm just like, it's okay. Like it's not like it's not as bad as some albums that came out in that era, but at the same time, there's nothing magical about Pure Guava to me. Though I know there's people because I actually know a guy who works at the record store in town here. It's his favorite album.
yeah, it is a lot of people. Same with the pod. That's why I said it's a little controversial because I know a lot of people put that in high regard. But
Right.
that one I have a little bit up, so I'll save that one. My comments on that one. Right now
Right.
I have this one.
Is this your number? What number is this?
This is number seven. Sorry,
7.
seven.
Okay.
This is pretty cool. This is actually original press on Twin Tone I got a couple years ago. So pretty cool. You don't see original pressings of Ween albums very often, but
I actually have an original CD on the Twin Tone label,
nice.
but I don't have the vinyl.
This album's pretty good. There's some unlistenable songs obviously, but there's also some classics. Birthday Boy I really loved back in the day off this one. It was nice. Uh,
Let Me Lick Your Pussy, which is like
yeah, the
the
Prince.
Prince cover is killer.
Common
Um,
Bitch is pretty funny.
yeah, yeah. But again, like there's stuff where you're like, damn, like these guys are onto something, and then like Bumblebee will come on, and you're like, well, they've just lost it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, and You Fucked Up was such a great way to start that album. That's
oh yeah,
probably the best song on the whole album, and it's a killer track and one of my all-time favorite Ween songs, really. But it's just to me there is some great songs on this album, but there's also a lot of garbage to me that kind of weigh it down. And by not garbage, but just stuff I wouldn't listen to anymore or
is
skip.
the vinyl a double?
It is a double, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if they made
Because
it
there's like 30
album,
songs on this damn thing.
if they made it a single album, it probably would have been a lot more cohesive.
I think so, yeah. So
Um, so for my number 7, I don't have anything to hold up, but is the Pod.
yes,
As
that's what I
much,
said. I think we're probably around the same. Pretty
yeah,
much.
as much as there are good songs, like I said on the Pod, there's a lot of just meandering things as well.
Yeah.
And as much as I like Molly or the Stallion or Dr. Rock or whatever, but there's still a lot of stuff on there where you're just like skip.
Yeah. The Polo Asado, I think, is on that one too, isn't it?
I think it is. Yeah, yeah.
Which I like that
It's
one a lot.
hilarious.
It's just him ordering Mexican food.
And then getting like the wrong price over and over again.
Yeah, like the pod does have some good tracks, but there's just like there's so many other songs on there I just don't care for or wouldn't listen to.
And gearing up to what they did like later, it's just it pales in comparison, in my opinion.
To kind of complete the albums that we have going, this is my number 6.
Okay.
Pure Guava. My original CD from back in the day. I don't actually have this on vinyl yet. I need to get that at some point. But this one, like I said, I was kind of alluding to it earlier. This one actually kind of shot up for me recently. This used to be probably my least favorite, or maybe second least favorite. But over the last little while, I've kind of grown to like it. The Stallion Part 3, I think, is an awesome song.
Yeah, it's killer. Yeah.
Probably one of my favorite Ween songs. It's up there. Pushing Little Daisies, obviously, I don't really like. The Going Gets Tough from the Get Go. That's not a bad song.
Yeah, that's good.
Pumping for the Man, Sarah. Uh, what else is good on here? Fat Boy is kind of okay. The Fat
Not,
Boy Axel
well,
song.
but again, it's a lot of meh on there, you know?
There's a lot of brownness. But I don't know the strength of those other songs that I mentioned. I don't know. I really like those songs. They're up there. Big Jim is on here. You know, it's
Well, Big
classic.
Jim's good.
So, you know, a lot of those, it made it kind of shoot up for me. And I feel like the strength of those songs outdoes it for me on the oneness and the pod and stuff like that. But as you can see, most of the early albums, the ones that are considered very brown, are kind of lower on the list for me.
Right, and for me as well. But so we're on to number 6 now?
I think so.
Or
Yep.
6?
So that was six was Pure Guava.
Oh, Pure Goa for you? Huh.
Yeah.
Live TV, ladies and gentlemen. 6 for me is God Being Satan. You know, and again, for the same
We're
reason, yeah.
floating around each
No,
other.
it's kind of in there, but again, there's songs I like on there, and then there's songs that I just, I skip.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm sure people are gonna watch this if anybody watches this, and they're gonna be like, "What are you talking about? Those are their best albums," you know.
Yeah, I can
But
feel the hate already because I already see it online quite often with Ween fans. Like, there's people who love Pure Guava and the pod, and that's like it for them, right?
right,
So, you know, those guys are gonna hate on us for sure.
and I don't think that they're bad albums. Like they're just for me a lot of filler, just kind of weird stuff.
But for me, on these early albums, like when you're talking about Pure Guava and stuff, and you hear songs like The Stallion Part 3 or whatever, to me, those are the seeds of how good they were gonna get and how
Right.
polished they could get. And you know, you can really hear the talent and everything involved with those songs instead of just screaming into a mic and Bumblebee or whatever.
But again, I like it's funny how it started. Like they were just a couple guys with like a 4-track who were just like being crazy. Like they would get home from work, from what I've read, and just like make crazy songs to make each other laugh. And somehow they ended up on like a record label. Like who else has this story? And then Elektra, like the label of like the Doors and Motley Crue and all these bands, and then they release Pure Guava. It's like what the hell?
I think this is why me and you are such Ween fans too, because we're basically Ween. Like me and you did the exact same thing. We always got together, make songs, and we made
Right.
jokey songs and songs that were pretty brown and trying to make each other laugh. 4-track recorders. We did all of
Right.
that stuff, right?
If anybody has heard any of our stuff, me and Mark have had a band for about 20 years.
Numerous bands.
Yeah, well, the main band is called the Puds, so there's stuff out there if you've heard it. But yeah, it's the same thing. We basically just wrote songs to make each other laugh and put it on tapes, and then eventually, stuff kind of comes out.
That's right. So which one are we on? 5, right?
Number 5. What's
This
yours?
I think this might surprise you a little bit. But number 5 is chocolate and cheese.
I'm hurt. I'm
I
hurt.
know. I thought I'd be surprised.
How
I
is that
surprised
5?
myself with some of this list.
How is that 5?
You know, I actually love this album a lot. This is the very first studio album I got, and for a while I probably even would have put this number 1. It's just the other albums have kind of grown since then for me. It's not that this is necessarily a bad album. It's just the other ones have kind of overtaken it, maybe. But almost every song on this album is pretty good.
I was gonna say that's why I'm shocked, because like every song pretty much on that album is good or great. Like
Yeah, I've gone back and forth.
76.
Sorry?
I was gonna say like Freedom of 76, Voodoo Lady, man, I like the list goes on and on.
I think part of the problem for me now is that I have worn that album out, like literally. And so I can't really listen to those songs that much anymore. Like it'd be hard for me to sit through Voodoo Lady now or Freedom or, a lot of the songs on there. This has Chocolate Town on it too, which is also one of my favorite Ween songs. But I just heard it so much, I think, that the other album started to creep up higher for me.
Buenos Tardes, a song that we
I know.
still cover, is on that album. I am hurt by this choice.
Between this one and the next one, I did flip flop a couple times. And even now, I'm kind of double thinking maybe I should have put this one ahead of the next one.
Right.
But I don't know. That's just where I kind of put it. And to me, these rankings could change in a day. Like we could probably do this video next week and it'd be different.
I actually I thought about that a little bit when we were speaking about the pod, because there is like of all those early Brown albums, I think the pod. I mean, it's got a lot of good songs. You know,
You're already changing your mind.
the list changes.
What do you have at? I think this is number five.
Five, five. I have the White Pepper. You know, again, it's just one of those albums that came out, and there's some good songs, some good, some good vocals by Jeaner, but it's kind of a bummer album, like
Yeah.
from front to back. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the last song. Oh, if you could save yourself, you'd save us all. This is like probably my favorite track on there. But overall, I just don't find it to be that. I mean, it's obviously a lot more polished than the pod, but
Well, I'll talk about it too. This is my number four, actually. This is the one I was kind of flip-flopping with chocolate and cheese.
I figured so actually.
This one is kind of it's grown on me over the years because for a while I never even really listened to this one. I'd always kind of be like, it's whatever. But you know exactly where I'm at. It's pretty good, even if you don't. Bananas and Blow, Stroke Race. It is a bit more somber album, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think I dig more of the somber music than you. You probably more partial to the rock, I guess, or
Yeah, I was gonna say like Stroker Ace is awesome, but again, that's more of like a Moist Boys type tune.
Stay Forever is probably my favorite track. That's a pretty somber, pretty somber song. The Grove is awesome.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm not saying these are bad songs. Like I think they're great songs and they come off great live. But just in the pantheon of Ween, like I look forward to Stroker Ace, and then I look forward to if you could save yourself, and then I turn the album off. You know what I mean? Like it's not up there for me, songwriting wise. It's probably one of my least favorite of the polished Ween album, if not my least favorite.
I think it might even be their most complete, accessible album, maybe, or
I'm not gonna go there.
mainstream album, maybe. That's what I'm gonna say.
No,
Like, if you were to pick any other albums,
I'm gonna save that for a different one. Was that your number 4?
sorry, I didn't want to say complete. I mean most mainstream album. Because Chocolate and Cheese was very accessible, but there was
There's some weird
a lot of jokey. This one isn't really that jokey. You know, there's not
Right.
really that much joking around on it.
And was that your number 4?
Yes.
Okay, then I want to throw in my number 4, which is the one I think is the most accessible to the common folk.
I think I know what it is.
Quebec. I think Quebec is probably like the least Ween album in their catalog. You know, like it's just like a straight ahead. It's a good album. It's got a lot of good songs on it, but like man, like it's very polished Ween.
It is very polished, and I think that's kind of the peak of their creativity, I guess. That it all kind of led up to that album.
But to me that's not always a good thing. Like I like Ween where the songwriting's great and the playing's great and the singing's great, but it's got to have that weird something,
Yeah.
And I feel like Quebec, like yeah, there's so many people in the neighborhood and like have happy colored marbles are kind of weird, but I don't know. This album just seems, I don't know. It just seems like something that everybody could get into, and that's not Ween.
I hear that. What was that? That was number four?
4, yep.
Okay. This one might be a little bit shocking because I know some people have this as number one and whatnot. But I have
You're
Mollusk
making
here.
an assumption, are you?
But this is I don't know, it's hard to say anything bad about this album. This album is pretty good, like front to back. And then when we're talking like top four, top five, all these albums are very, very good to great. And
Right.
to me, it's like a sliver between them in terms of which one I like better. There's not much difference really, especially the top three. This one has like the Mollusk, obviously.
Cold Blows the Wind killer.
What's that?
The song Cold Blows the Wind.
Yeah.
which is I think it's like a Japanese folk song or something that they adapted. Killer.
The one song that I really don't like is Ocean Man. I just
I'm in the same boat actually, which is funny because I think that was in like the SpongeBob movie,
yeah,
wasn't it? And
yeah,
like of all the songs on that album, that's the one that people are like, "Oh, it's Ocean Man."
yeah.
But yeah, it's probably my least favorite. Mutilated Lips is probably my favorite. That's the one when I first bought that album. I played that song over and over again. I was just like blown away by it.
Great album, and we covered that I think once.
We might have actually,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and it's gonna be all right. Is obviously a great song. Pink Eye is kind of skippable, I guess. Waving My Dick in the Wind is a classic.
You know, and
Yeah,
again, it's one of those albums where even like the weird songs, like the eel, is like phenomenal. Like like you come back, it's like, damn, that's a weird song, but it's killer. You know what I mean?
it's kind of funny because for a while this album was my favorite, and the top three here have rotated in and out of my favorite for
Right.
forever. On a certain day of the week, I probably put one over the other. But what do you got at number three?
Number three for me is Chocolate and Cheese. So superimpose the album cover here. Um, it's just one of those albums that's, like I said, every single song is just good or great. Like even stuff like Joppa Road or it's just they're all good. I can't think of a song where I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a shitty song, on this album.
Yeah,
So it is number three. So I do find two albums better, and yeah, we'll get into those now. What's your number two?
and all the Ween fans know what those two albums are. My number two, which has been my number one for a lot of time, which is kind of cycled in and out. Uh, I do love this album still.
There you go.
Quebec. I think it is one of their more complete albums. It's a bit more like spacey, I guess, than a lot of them, like Transdermal Celebrations and Zoloft are on here.
Right.
I don't know. I think what I like about this one is almost every song is pretty good. Like I wouldn't skip a lot of it. Oh,
It's a
Chocolate Town's on
well-made
this one.
album.
Chocolate Town's on this one. I think I said it was on Chocolate and Cheese, but I think I got the chocolate mixed up.
Yeah. The brown.
The Argus is on here. That's not bad. Happy Colored Marbles I do like a lot. Um, I Don't Want It is actually that's one of my more favorite songs. I like
Yeah.
that song a lot. This is actually a original UK press, which is kind of cool. Got this little.
It's funny because like now that you mention all those songs, like it probably could have rated higher for me.
It just depends on the day of the week. It really does.
Like
Like you could be more into that
like I
album
said,
one day.
there is spacey songs on there, but it just feels more accessible to me.
Yeah,
That was your number two.
that's right. Yeah. What do you have at two?
Mine's the Mollusk. So again, it's just one of those albums
I'm
that,
surprised we had the same number one.
yeah, I know.
I thought this was gonna be your number one, to be honest.
It was close. It was one of those ones where it's like, yeah, but the Mollusk, like front to back, like even the weirder stuff is just phenomenal. Like this album is just a high watermark or damn close. Honestly, for being Ween, it's probably, in my opinion, the most Ween album is the Mollusk.
Which is
But
weird because it's like a total like prog rock album or something. It's like,
but even live, like they kind of have that prog vibe with like with Glenn on the organ, and I mean Claude is no slouch on drums, so they kind of have that proggy vibe.
yeah, and it's also kind of interesting with Ween because each album it's kind of like they tackle a different genre on the more polished albums anyway. It seems like they kind of tackle a different genre, obviously.
But and it's funny because it's like they do it, and there's some bands you're like, oh, like why are the Rolling Stones playing a reggae song? Whereas with like Ween, you're like, oh yeah, it works. Like it just
Yeah.
like they just do it well. And they're very very chameleon like.
Yeah, they're masters, I think, at pulling that kind of stuff off, like switching genres and being good at it.
Right. It's true, except on the cucaracha, which I don't know what genre that is, but it's fucking terrible.
It's postmodern.
So number one,
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that we both have this one as number one.
like I
We
said,
talked
if
about it quite.
with the mollusk, so
Like I said, the top three, like Quebec was my favorite for a long time. The Mollusk was my favorite for a bit. This one me and you talk about quite often.
It's the country album.
I surprise myself sometimes. It's 12 Golden Country hits, but it only has I think 11 songs
It
on it.
has 11
I always
songs on
think.
it, I think, yeah. Which very Ween, which is very Ween.
And I'm not even a huge country guy. I like old country, which may be why I like this album because it is a bit more old school country. But just like every song on this is great. Like I listen to this album a lot, like over and over again. I'm holding you, Japanese cowboy, piss up a rope. I don't want to leave you on the farm. Powder Blue's not bad. Mr. Richard Smoker. Help me scrape the mucus off my brain. Just like every song is killer on this album.
It's true, and again, it's one of those albums that for a while was like when it came out, it was like a sleeper for me. Like when I first
Yeah.
got it, and I was like, I'd put it on and kind of give a chuckle. But when I actually kind of started to play it more, and I realized that like every single song is great on that
Yeah.
album. It's like the Mollusk, whereas like the Mollusk is the most Ween album. Sometimes this isn't really Ween-esque, though it is funny. But yeah, every single song is just like stellar. It's just front to back killer.
I think I had the same experience because originally you kind of put it on and it's like Ween's doing a country album. That's hilarious. It's kind of like a novelty or something like that.
Right.
But then the more you listen to it, you're like, damn, actually, like these songs are pretty good.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Like the first time you hear it, you're like, "Piss up a rope" is funny, or like Japanese cowboy is funny. But when you actually kind of like play it over again, you realize that they're just well written songs.
Yeah.
They're well played songs, well sang.
Yeah, I think it's a bit controversial because I know a lot of Ween fans like hate the country album. They hate it. So,
Yeah.
um, and most people I've seen like I haven't looked at people's top 10 lists recently, but I remember like a few years ago reading people's lists, and I was surprised how many people had this pretty far down, if not like last. So,
Right. Well,
I think we might stir the pot a little bit with that as number one, but that's what it is, right? So,
it might be due another listen. I mean, if somebody is like watching this video and they're like the country album, how? Just go back and listen to it, man. Like it's got a lot of good, well crafted songs.
I think maybe just a lot of people don't like country, especially nowadays. So maybe it's hard for them to get into it. If you're a bit more open to country, like I was always a fan of old school country, so I think I was a lot more open to liking this album.
Right. A bit more twang.
But yeah, that's our list. I think we were
So
pretty much on the same page for the most part.
for the most part, we also kind of stumbled. We should mention Shinola,
Yeah, yeah, great
Shinola,
album.
whatever you want to call it. Stellar album. We did not forget it, but it's kind of a comp of just soundtrack and weird stuff, B-sides or whatever.
Well,
So
Gabrielle is one of my favorite songs ever by them. That's a killer song.
Gabrielle is stellar. Yeah, like, Gabrielle is probably, and it's got the rift on there.
Yeah,
It's just got a lot of great songs. But if you include that one, you kind of start to go into like the bootlegs, like Taste the Waste. There's a bootleg called that, which has a lot of good like weird songs, like Put the Coca on My Dick, and
yeah, great song.
kids
Yeah,
do. Yeah, so it really becomes a slippery slope. So we were kind of we should cut it with just the studio stuff, and yeah, that's what we did. Should we get into Ween in the future?
yeah, yeah. What do you think it holds for them? Because right now, I don't think they're doing any shows together.
Yeah, they're doing like festival
Are they
shows.
back doing it?
Yeah,
Because they
like
keep going on and off.
very rarely, but I do know a guy who's seen them. I think it was last year, and he said that they were great live.
Well, I saw a video from a few years ago, and they got back together and they did this set, and it was awesome because it's all like brown, like pure guava stuff from the pod, and it was
Right,
great, and they sounded great, and they made all those songs work. It's funny because when I hear the pod and stuff and those more brown albums, the studio versions are kind of whatever, but when I hear them play that stuff live, it's so much
right.
better to me.
Well, it's like the Live at the Cat's Cradle album, where like it is some of the earlier stuff, but I don't know, it just translates better live, you
Yeah,
know. But
I would love to see them again. They put on a great show. Like I did enjoy the show we went to, but it was on the La Cucaracha tour, and seeing how low it is on our list, it wasn't the greatest tour for us to go see because the majority of the songs were from that album.
but
Plus
then
some classics.
they would play like some of the classics, and it's like the things would just erupt.
Yeah,
But
it was a great show. They sounded good and everything. I just would have preferred to see a set where they just ran through all their classics instead of
they did
focusing on one album.
a Beach Boy set where it's just play the hits.
Well, that's where they're at now, right? They haven't released an album since 2007, so now
Right.
they just kind of play, whatever songs they feel like playing from all the different albums, right? So
So what
that'd be
about the
cool to
solo
see.
stuff?
I actually enjoy the solo stuff. I like Jeaner's solo stuff more, I think.
Right.
The Freeman album was actually really good. Marvelous Clouds was good, even though it was covers, but that was pretty good. Diener, his albums are good, but they're a bit more just straight ahead
Straight up
rock.
rock. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say it's funny that you say you like the Jeter albums better because I think the Dean stuff solo is like
yeah.
way better. But
I kind of enjoy Gene's songwriting, like the singer-songwriter type of
right.
vibe he gives.
And he has a great voice. It's funny because of all the people, the singers from the '90s who get brought up, like Scott Weiland. I mean, he's great, one of my favorites, and Chris Cornell and all these singers. Jeter is never in the mix ever. Like nobody brings him up, but he could probably outsing the majority of them. You know?
Yeah, he's always been pretty good, and I think maybe just his the style of music and what they were doing, maybe people just didn't latch on to it, but he's always been very talented.
And Ween for a band that's been on like major labels and things, they've always kind of been like an underground band, you know? Like it's funny because if you see a guy with like a Ween hat or a Ween shirt, you're like, hey, like this guy knows what's going on.
Yeah,
Primus was the same way, where like you see somebody, even though they're on like a major label, you see somebody wearing like a Primus shirt. You're like, Primus suck, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Eh,
it's kind of cool though because it makes you feel like it's your band. It's not
right.
everybody's band; it's kind of your band, or it has that small time. It's like a little secret that only the cool people kind of know about or whatever. But
And it's funny that they've kind of remained that band because they have had exposure. Like they were on like South Park, they were in the movie It's Pat. Like they've been out there,
yeah,
and for some reason I don't know. But again, I don't know about you, but when I have played albums for people who aren't really like Ween people, don't know what they sound like, almost always like, oh, this is good,
yeah,
you
I
know?
played the live in Chicago for my buddy Matt back in the day, and he loved it. He thought it was great. I don't
Yeah,
think he ever went out and bought an album, but for the time he watched it, he enjoyed it. So
right. It's a great band, and yeah, I mean, I think even though we have like rated the albums and there does have to be a bottom and a top, I mean, really, they're a band that are worth listening to, period.
yeah,
Like I think their catalog is worth like delving into.
yeah, for sure. And even the albums that are on the bottom or towards the bottom, I still like all of Ween's catalog. I'm still a fan of Ween. There's not really a particular album I would say I hate. There's a couple that I probably wouldn't listen to very often or skip a bunch of tracks when I do listen to it. But overall, I am a fan of their whole catalog. I like everything they've done, which is also pretty crazy because of all the genres they kind of jump
Right.
into. Now, I could see a lot of people liking one album and not really liking the rest or something like that, but I do enjoy most of their stuff.
But I think they have a style that if you like that style, you will get pulled in, you know? And even the Cucaracha, which, like I said, I think is a horrible album. Probably of all the music that came out that year, it still ranks probably pretty all right with me, you know? Like, it's just not up to the Ween caliber for me, you know?
Yeah. Well, this is a lot of fun. I hope we can do maybe like a Ween songs or something one day. That'd be kind of interesting. Top 10 songs.
Right, right.
I think that'd be a lot more varied probably than the albums list. I bet we'd have a completely different top 10 on
And we
that one.
probably would because, yeah, even though albums kind of encapsulate things, there are songs on like albums that have ranked lower that I think are probably some of their best.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said,
Yeah,
Molly from the Pod is one of my favorite songs by them.
yeah. When you rank the studio albums, you kind of have to like, weigh how good the good songs are versus how bad the bad songs are. And you kind of have to, kind of base your opinion on the album on the entire thing rather than just the strength of a few
Right.
songs. But some songs on those lower albums are very, very strong songs for me too. So
Yeah, so yeah, same. Like I said, like the Browner lower albums, like man, they do have gold on there. Like if you can sit through Bumblebee, like you get Birthday Boy, which is like one of their best, you know?
or even on the Pod, like Pod was last for me, but She Fucks Me is a great song,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
up there.
killer song.
Yeah, that's up there for me, and they do great live versions of that song too.
And we do great live versions of that song as well.
We have covered quite a few Ween
We
songs.
have overall like of all the bands that we've covered, I would say, and it's funny because when we started, you hadn't even heard Ween, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Like
yeah. I
I
came
was,
later.
yeah, but we were just a bunch of dudes with like we didn't even have a 4 track. We had like a 2 track recorder, and we were just trying to like write songs to make each other laugh,
Yep,
and you know, invariably it would come out crazy, and that was fun, you know.
definitely. You got anything else, or you want to wrap it up?
That's pretty much what we have on the paper here. So yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you later.
And if you have any comments about your favorite albums by Ween, or if you have an argument for an album that we put low and you're like, what are you talking about? You know, Pure Guava is like the white album of Ween. Put it in the comments. Later.